notice how moving in together feels like the logical next step until it suddenly feels like a trap? The initial excitement of blending your lives, the constant closeness, the "we're basically married anyway" energy can slowly get replaced by a low-level hum of anxiety you can't quite name. Here's something most people won't tell you. When a man moves in with a woman before a lifelong commitment is clearly made, there's often a specific pattern that follows. And it's not what you'd expect. It's not immediate regret. It's not one dramatic fight about chores that blows everything up. It's quieter than that. It's a slow fade, and it usually kills the momentum and the mystery of a relationship in stages you don't see coming. In the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through 4 things that tend to happen when you share an address before you share a vow. Not theory, not traditionalist fear-mongering, just patterns I've seen play out again and again with men navigating modern relationships, commitment, and what comes after. Some of this might surprise you. Some of it might feel uncomfortably familiar. Either way, by the end, you'll understand the psychology of cohabitation better than most men ever will. Before we go further, let me ask you something simple. If you think moving in before marriage is a good test drive, just comment yes. If you don't, comment no. I read every comment and it helps me know what's landing. And if you're finding value in this kind of content, I'd appreciate it if you'd like this video and subscribe. It's a small thing, but it helps more men find these conversations. Let's get into it. Here's what often happens first. You merge your logistics, sometimes quickly. Sometimes it looks like a smart financial move. Half the rent, half the bills, one set of groceries, waking up together every day. And for a while, it works. But here's the thing most people don't talk about. Research from the National Marriage Project and other relationship researchers has shown that cohabitation often serves a psychological function, and it's not always about deepening love. A lot of the time, it's about maximizing convenience and reducing friction in the short term. Think about it like this. You've probably heard this exact conversation. My lease is up in July, yours is up in August. We're together all the time anyway. We could save money. From the outside, it looks like progress, but what's actually happening underneath is different. The relationship isn't progressing because of an intentional shared vision. It's progressing because of timing and convenience. Sociologists and marriage researchers often describe this as the difference between deciding and sliding. You didn't actively decide, "we're building a future and here's our plan." You slid into cohabitation because it was easier than maintaining 2 separate lives. And sliding feels harmless until you realize convenience is the enemy of romance, because romance thrives on intentionality, not default settings. The second thing that happens is even more revealing. The effort drops. Not right away, but eventually. Maybe it's 6 months in, maybe it's a year. You're sharing a bathroom, grocery shopping together, folding laundry, watching Netflix on the couch, and for the first time you notice the mystery, the tension that fueled attraction is fading fast. There's a psychological reason for this. Before you lived together, seeing her was an event. You planned something, you got ready, you anticipated her. The effort was part of the romance. Now she's just there. The excitement of picking her up and taking her out gets replaced by, "Did you buy paper towels?" and "Whose turn is it to take out the trash?" And here's the part most men don't anticipate. When you live together, you don't just share space, you share a nervous system. There's no reset, there's no space to miss each other. There's no Friday night version of the relationship that gets everyone's best energy. What often replaces romance is low-grade monitoring. Not because she's a villain, because cohabitation changes the unspoken contract. When you share a home, she starts scanning for signs of commitment. Does he plan? Does he lead? Does he take responsibility without being asked? And when she doesn't feel that, it usually doesn't come out as a calm conversation. It comes out as irritation, criticism, little corrections. "Why do I have to ask you?" Meanwhile, you start feeling managed, evaluated, like you can't fully relax in your own home. So your role subtly shifts from suitor to co-manager of a small household, and her role subtly shifts from girlfriend to auditor of your future potential. For men, this stage is confusing. You're physically closer than ever, but the vibe starts feeling like roommates with benefits, and you realize something you didn't expect. You traded the thrill of the chase for the mundane reality of domestic life without the security and clarity that marriage is supposed to represent. If you're finding value so far, let me know in the comments. Now, here's the third thing, and this one's important. The exit barrier gets too high. When you date someone living separately and it's not working, you break up. It hurts, but it's clean. You go home, you get space, you heal. But when you live together, something shifts. Breaking up means breaking a lease, dividing furniture, untangling subscriptions and bank transfers, figuring out who gets the dog, finding a new place, moving boxes, explaining it to family members who were celebrating that you took the next step. It becomes a logistical nightmare. And that nightmare says something you weren't prepared to hear. It says you might now be staying in the relationship not because she's the one, but because leaving is too expensive, too exhausting, and too embarrassing. This is why so many couples drift into what looks like commitment, but is really inertia. Many people end up getting engaged or married after cohabiting, not because they reached a clear decision point, but because it feels like the path of least resistance. We already live together. It's basically the same. We might as well. And that bothers you more than you thought it would, because it forces you to confront something uncomfortable. You gave away husband privileges for boyfriend prices, and now you're locked into a situation that's harder to exit than it is to improve. The fourth thing that happens is where it all comes together. Resentment builds. And this is the silent killer, and it's the part that takes the longest because it requires you to look at the foundation honestly. Here's the mismatch. She expects you to act like a husband because you live like one. You expect to maintain some boyfriend freedoms because you haven't made a final commitment. So you're living under one set of expectations while operating under another. And the arguments stop being about chores. They become about the unspoken contract you both think you signed. Her "you never take out the trash" is often code for "I don't feel supported." Your "why are you making such a big deal" is often code for "I feel controlled." The men who navigate this often describe a moment where they realize they gave away the destination before enjoying the journey. Not because she was demanding, but because the structure of the relationship was flawed the moment the U-Haul was booked. Here's what that looks like in real life. You're sitting in an apartment you both pay for, having an argument about where the relationship is going, and you realize with full clarity that the test drive didn't give you answers. It gave you anxiety. Still with me? Comment 1 if this already makes sense. Now, I want to be clear about something. This isn't about judging people who live together. Some couples do it and succeed, but when they succeed, it's usually because they didn't slide. They decided, they had structure, they had a plan, they had a timeline. So let's talk about what to do instead, because this is where most content fails. It scares you, but it doesn't guide you. If you're considering moving in together, here's a simple filter that keeps you out of trouble. First, have the hard conversation before the easy convenience. Ask, are we moving towards marriage, yes or no? And if yes, what's the timeline? Not someday, a real window. Second, agree on roles before you share a roof. Who handles money logistics? Who handles household standards? What does clean mean? What does responsibility mean? Because unspoken expectations are where resentment is born. Third, protect romance on purpose. If you move in, you need space and intentionality, date nights that actually feel like dates, time apart without guilt, a conscious effort to keep polarity alive. Fourth, don't use cohabitation to avoid deciding. If one of you is pushing for a joint lease just to prove you care, let me stop you right there. You don't need to share an address to show you're committed. You need to be a man who builds his own castle and only invites a queen inside when the time is right, the foundation is solid, and the vision is shared. What's one thing you've learned about commitment with age? I'd genuinely like to hear. Drop it in the comments. Thank you for spending these minutes with me. If this resonated, I'd love for you to subscribe. Real talk, no hype, just truth. I'll see you in the next one.